It's just a hello and welcome. This session is sponsored by TSA Choice. TSA Choice is a technology integrator with the purpose of helping organizations succeed by fulfilling the promises of technology. Core solutions revolve around IT, unified communications, structured cable and fiber, audio-visual solutions, and intrusion technology. Thank you for coming and enjoy the session. And do remember to watch the chat if you want to add some side comments and questions. Take it away.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll make sure who all we have that's our official presenters. Tom, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm Tom McGrath. I'm with the North Carolina Department of Public Safety, Division of Emergency Management, and I'm assigned to the State Fusion Center, working cyber matters with the team here at NCLGISA, North Carolina National Guard, DIT, and a variety of other folks. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Seth, I don't have your rank official, so I'll let you make your announcement and introduce.
Lieutenant Colonel Seth Barron. I'm the Chief of Cyber Operations for the North Carolina National Guard, and I work with, it looks like, about most of the men and women on this call. So happy to be here.
Excellent. And I do want to make sure, do we have any representatives from State Board of Elections? You don't have to cam up, but if you want to turn on your mic, just want to make sure if we do, or from DIT. This will be a little bit informal since we have a smaller group here. And so the goal of this session really, well, one, I imagine, and looking through the participant list here, I know we have mostly county represented, which is right for our current elections that we're going through. So this will be more questions in looking from the county perspective to what we're hearing from election security and how we should work with the state if there's any events and what information. I know there's the EISAC has been putting out some notices. Definitely time to read those. Tom, would you like to talk a little bit about, NCEM and the Fusion Center's role and how you guys are preparing at the state level and any contacts that our counties should be looking at in communications for election security?
Sure. So at the State Fusion Center, it does a variety of different things. Cyber is really one of the newer facets, but they have very robust investigative abilities for civil unrest, public safety issues, things like that. So they're monitoring, and they have a number of analysts and agents and police officers assigned to the center, along with DHS, FBI, and myself. And so they're looking at all sorts of threats across the whole spectrum, not just cyber, but things that could maybe result in a cyber issue, but could just result in a public safety issue, some violence, some property destruction, things like that. So they're tracking all those things. So we're working kind of hand in glove with them. There's a number of analysts doing that, and they're going to be with the Emergency Operations Center on the election day, and a number of us will be there as well. So looking at the cyber aspects, and as Randy had mentioned, that the EISAC, the Elections Infrastructure ISAC, has been putting out some information that is pertinent to the upcoming elections here. Some of it has just been like general best practices, cyber best practices. But last night we got some information regarding a couple of CVEs that they said to focus on. Well, they said to focus on protecting RDP. Those exploits, if you don't obviously you don't need it, don't use it, and restrict it. And if you do need it, and so that's a vector that they've hit their radar screen. And a couple of the CVEs that they mentioned, which they should be putting out more information on here, but it's one of them is 2020-5902, and the other one is 2017 9248. So those are the ones that kind of hit the radar here very recently. So make sure that people are kind of buttoned up for that. This stuff has been pushed out through the State Board of Election to the county boards of election, and hopefully through to their IT folks, obviously. And I suspect everyone on this call are the IT folks supporting them. Another bulletin that I put out in the NCLGISA listserv here a couple days yesterday or day before was an NSA bulletin that came out, and it listed the top 25 CVEs that are being exploited by the Chinese. And it wasn't focused specifically on elections, but there was a lot of .gov type targets. So it's kind of the low-hanging fruit. There are fixes for all those out there. And so I pushed that out just so everyone would be aware of it and try to button those things up, because that's obviously on the radar of the Chinese and probably others as well. So that's I think I'll stop there and let someone else jump in.
All righty. Well, I'll turn over and see what Lieutenant Colonel Barron and the Guard kind of your response. Are you working with EM in the Fusion Center, or how is your operations through this election process as it relates? I know you'll definitely, there's some limitations if there were some events for how you could come on site. So it'd be interesting to hear about that as well. So just any thoughts you have.
Okay. Yeah, we don't really like to play with others, so we're on our own. No, I'm kidding. We have, sorry about that. We are integrated fully into the State Board of Election, the Fusion Center, and next week we'll start our full-time monitoring. We've put sensors in on the EM network and the State Board of Election network, and we'll start 24-hour monitoring next week to assist them with any traffic that we see that might not make sense. Daily, we'll review that traffic with them, produce reports, and start to kind of hone in on what right looks like leading up to the election. We've done that every election for the past 3 years, so it's pretty ingrained. This year, we'll bump our footprint up considerably. And everybody goes on what they call state active duty status, which is what Randy was getting at in terms of how we can support. When we're in a federal status, especially around elections, things are very tied down. When we go into a state active duty status, which essentially allows us to work as state employees, is the easiest way to put it. We have a lot more leeway in what we can respond to and what we can do. And so for the elections, we'll have a team working with Tom and the Fusion Center, just doing publicly available information gathering. And so for the past couple of weeks, we've been doing dark web monitoring, and we found quite a bit of stuff, nothing necessarily for the elections, but in the searches for the election, found some other things that we've passed over to the FBI. But we'll be doing that right up until all the way through the elections. We'll have a team monitoring social media for anything that goes out there that is, untruthful or, trying to get people to go to the wrong polling site or putting fake news, for lack of a better term, out there. We'll also have a team doing network monitoring for the EM network as well as the state board. That's kind of our big picture look. We'll also have teams on standby for incident response in the event that something kicks off. I'll have about 40 people between the day and the night shift here on the ground that we can move out as needed. Hopefully we don't need that, but we will have forensic and threat hunters available as required.
No, that's really awesome, because I was just thinking about it from a strike team standpoint, and I know during that week, hopefully we don't get any calls and nobody's doing anything to the like, but it would be very difficult because we do have municipal members, but definitely appreciate all the efforts and ramping up status that we're hearing from you guys as well. That way we can focus on dealing with all the changes and getting everything out from transitioning from one stop to day of election. So really appreciate your help there. And I guess I'll ask, because I know that from Tom, what you just mentioned is that the state is running the state EOC. Are there any other counties that are opening up their EOCs during this particular election? I know we are doing that. We did that the last presidential, and then also tested it during municipal. And we find that having EM response is definitely good. I mean, they're amazing at logistics and keeping up with all the other points, but just curious if anybody else is ramping up their local EOCs.
Yeah, I don't have a count on that. I believe others are. And as Randy mentioned, the value, of having EM involved is that they can, work to get generators there if there's a power outage and other type things that might not be a cyber attack, but may bring the polling down. And so they're able to help. So I think having the local ones open is valuable. The state obviously will be open and be going the whole time there. I think the 2nd through the 4th at the minimum. So but I don't, to answer your question, I don't have a count on the others.
Yeah, and I'm just curious from others that are in the audience, if if you're standing up or if you're doing anything that you'd like to mention. Again, this is more, I want to make sure this is more discussion. That we're kind of talking about what's going on, but just anything that anyone's doing, because I think this is a good peer-to-peer sharing of information that somebody might be able to take away some key points. I know in our case, to that point, EM is really playing a good role in being a runner for certain items, like you mentioned, generators. But I mean, we've got phones out. At our one-stop sites, we have connectivity. But then once, of course, you go into your just regular polling places, there's all kinds of other things. So just having that team of individuals that's above and beyond your tech, because I know our election staff is being burdened with all the you've got new requirements for PPE and things like that. So any additional help in EM is always awesome to work with, especially local and state.
So I just reached out to ask our EM director that they're not planning on opening up or standing up the EOC here in Henderson County, but they will be on standby with cat-like reflexes.
Okay, and that they do have. So,
yes,
awesome. Joel, I'll put you on the spot. And Davidson, are y'all doing anything with EM?
No, I don't think that's had those talks.
Okay, gotcha. Ted Onslow.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, we're not really doing anything other than our normal stuff.
Gotcha.
Tom, are the RCCs going to be stood up as well as a state?
I'm not sure. I'll shoot a message out right now, see if I can get an answer for you.
Well, just curious.
And then as far as changes, is anybody doing anything with, I mean, I know we used to do election night reporting, which would be bringing everybody together and having rooms. And of course, that's a little bit different given social distancing and things. I'm just curious if anybody's made any additional provisions for election night reporting.
Randy, this is Joel. We actually stopped doing any kind of election night reporting for media a couple of years ago when all the information was out on the State Board of Elections site. So the parties and candidates were getting the same information, and it wasn't coming any sooner, to what we were showing. So our attendance actually started fizzling out, and so we just ended that.
Yeah, same.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wish.
Same here.
Same boat, and believe me, that was something I was very, very thankful for, because that was something we reinvented every election season, and that was a godsend for us.
Yeah, we're still doing it. It is in a different place than our elections. It used to be in the same building. So of course you'd have folks running down, and especially this year, I imagine with absentee ballots and the counting of everything, and you used to get your absentee numbers in right at the same time you would open up. You'd already submit them, so that's not going to happen more than likely in all locations. So there's going to be some cases of not really knowing. Any insight, Tom? I was reading some articles on that, Tom or Lieutenant Colonel Barron, about just getting results in. And I mean, I guess I'm trying to think, because I know we have a lot of IT staff that hang around and run through the process, and then usually we wrap it up and you have some unofficial results. But I'm thinking that it's going to be potentially longer nights just for everybody to prepare for. But has there been any talk about that anybody can share, or thoughts on election day and the differences that we might see?
I think, Randy, from our standpoint, I know that in the past couple, they've varied anywhere from 11:30 at night to 3:30 in the morning, depending on the process and how getting them all in. I'm sure most of you guys know that the voting, they start processing in the early afternoon and then go throughout the night until the last one shuts down. But I think I think there's no good accurate way to predict what time it'll be done. I think Karen was guessing like 2 a.m. and some others were 4 a.m. But it could really be any time during that night. And then I don't think, Tom, do you remember when they're going to actually certify the vote? It's not for 7 to 10 days afterwards, I think.
Yeah, I think it's going to be further out than in the past. I think that was the last thing I heard. So they were going to have additional time to count the absentee ballots. So on election night, right when polls close, they'll shoot off the numbers of the early voting results real fast. That's how come you see those. And then what they do is they wait for all the precincts to report to the county boards of election, and then for the county boards of election to upload the data over to the state board. So that's kind of how you see those numbers roll and change as the night goes on. But so we'll probably, I know we'll be there until the last precinct has given it to the last county, who's given it to the state board, and they have a number there. So, but the certification happens days later. So in this case, it may be more than a week. So.
Yeah, I'm just definitely thinking that we're probably looking at a longer night than we typically have. I mean, probably same as normal presidential, but then maybe some additional for this go round. So, and as far as and I know we don't have State Board of Elections representation, but I know they have their hotlines open. Has there been any efforts because we've got, some time leading up, again, this is last minute talks. If an event were to happen, I know we've seen it in the past where State Board of Elections has been caching laptops, things like that. But for the folks that are on, do we know if there's any caching of any devices that have been done, or has anybody heard anything about that? Like if say there were a ransomware attack and we needed to get devices out to replace for one stop, are there any state resources? Would that just be an EM request? I know it would be a scoping call and everything, but just curious if there's been any resource that we've heard of allocations.
I have not heard of any, but I think that the fallback is so those laptops have the poll books on them, and the fallback is to go to the paper. So I think that's what they're going to do initially until we would be able to potentially get them replacements, but they may be over by that time. So they would just go to the paper.
And I think they're actually asking them to print paper poll books as well. I know that's been one of the requests. And
yeah, they need to have that as a backup because there were some issues, if you remember, in Durham. I guess the last election, or the one before that, I can't remember now. But it was just a delay because of that sort of thing. So it's definitely on their radar.
So, Tom and Seth, is there anything that we at the county level can do to help you all out as, eyes, ears, boots on the ground through this process that we're not already doing.
Well, I know that one of the things that we found out today, there are some counties standing up web applications for wait times at polling sites. And I know that Tori Krass from the state board had reached out to just check and see if there was anything we could do in terms of scanning, vulnerability scanning, or testing against those apps. Because some of those would be pretty easy to manipulate and, make a wait time 8 hours so somebody decides not to go vote. And so there are a list, and Alex Reinwald is on, Cab Reinwald, who's heavily involved in that. He can probably speak more to that particular example, but if there's any sort of new stuff people are standing up for directly for these elections, let us know ahead of time and let us know if we can get in there and do a quick scan or even a pen test if it's not online already, that we can just validate that it's good to go. We've seen from some other states some, let's use the word wonky web applications that were fairly easy to manipulate. And so that's why this came to our attention, is some of the stuff just coming out of nowhere, strictly for the elections, probably without thinking security in some places, and it becomes vulnerable from that standpoint. But other than that, if you guys are seeing stuff, just to let us know, and we'll do the same thing. One of the hard parts for us now is filtering through the noise, because we get reports, and you guys are probably getting them too, from FBI, CISA, EIISAC, Cyber Command, Big Army, National Guard. So it's just trying to filter some of that stuff out and find what's really important. So, especially at the county level, where you guys have hands on and eyes on, sharing that information is valuable.
And I'll add to that. I know, and so what you're saying is if you're bringing up a web app, especially developing, I'll speak because we're using it, and it's not a plug, it's just something they're doing, but, and I know the state's using another, but for DDoS protection, Cloudflare's out there and they're offering free for your domains, and we've taken advantage of it. It's their Athenian project, and they can stand up right in front of stuff, and they're ready to stand that up. It's just DNS changes, and really quickly, that's probably one of the things that we could potentially see is just DDoS attacks against .govs and sites being impacted from that. So especially if you're hosting your own or bringing it up on an IS box or something like that, then I can see that being just a target. So be looking at that. That hasn't been the normal to say do you have DDoS protection, but it's becoming easier to do now.
Yeah, I think the other challenge is deciding which of these changes to go ahead and jump on, because you don't want to break something right in the middle of all this either. So weeding through all that to say, we need just, when my Sonic Wall came out, the CVSS score dictated we go ahead and do it, but I was nervous about applying that patch during election time.
Yeah, I would say, if these CVE scores, and we were talking about that in the strike team, if the CVE scores are high, 9.0 and higher, and they're on infrastructure, and if it has the word VPN in it and it has anything to do with what you may have turned on, I was talking with Tom about that. There was another one that was a top 5, and half of probably 75% of the ransomware events that we had worked with were ultimately based on those VPN vulnerabilities. So I know they hurt, but yeah, as long as they come out soon enough, those would be the ones, and of course, Tom, I know you mentioned one, but that one had 2017 as a prefix to it. So that's definitely an old one.
Yeah, I think the fixes are out there, for those. And I understand being skittish there as kind of in the middle of voting started and everything. The one thing I would say is that if you come across anything, even if it seems not that, and you're going to be able to deal with it, and it's not a big deal, it still would be valuable if you push it to the team here, just because another county may be suffering from the same thing or susceptible to the same thing and not really know. So you guys are great, but anything you come across, during elections that you think is pertinent to another county, let us know so we can push it out. Thanks.
I know something
to
we've
that
seen.
point, Chad, did you have any issues with your sonic wall patching? I mean, I think that's
No.
really good info too, is sharing either on the list and, hey, if somebody does take the plunge and does one of these upgrades, just to give somebody that assurance that, you didn't take down anything or it didn't snowball into 15 other updates you had to do.
Right.
Yeah.
No, fortunately, everything went very, very smooth. My sonic wall was only down literally like 3.5 minutes, and network access was back up. I called the lady over, the tech over in Alexis. I'm like, I really hate to do this to you. And I did it after 5 o'clock, but they were still working. I said, but I've got to patch this firewall. I said, and it has never gone wrong. But I said, if it's ever going to do it, it's going to do it right now. But everything did go smooth. And we have 2 sonic walls, and they both went very, very smooth. So no issues there.
Randy,
Go ahead, Daryl.
Something we've seen a great deal of spike in for us, and I mean, this isn't necessarily tied to elections, is a lot of citizens saying that they're getting calls from us, for various different types of spamming or scamming techniques. Of course, there's not much we can do about that, but maybe just inform the citizenry that, and I don't know exactly how you do that, but yeah, we've had a lot of citizens calling lately and say, we just got a call from this number saying that my social security number is expired or something like that, and of course there's not much we can do about that. And I don't know if the ILEX or CLEX can do anything about that or not, or what options we have there. I mean, it's just a text string and a phone call. But
Randy, this is Daryl from Henderson County. I work with Mark. He's my boss. But I upgraded NSA 3600 sonic walls at DSS, went smooth, no problems. Another session I was in earlier today, we got into discussion. Other people have had little issues with sonic wall upgrades over the past with geo IP filters. And we have seen that problem at the courthouse at Henderson County. We have to sort of toggle it on and off to get it to allow traffic through, and also some LDAP issues people were talking about. But the Randall updated the NSAs at the courthouse the other day, and it absolutely went smooth. So we've not seen any problems with this current upgrade with Sonic Wall.
I think some of those LDAP issues were related to when you did the upgrade, it wanted to go to SMBv2, and maybe some of those cases they were still on SMBv1, potentially. I don't know.
But back to Randy's original point, I think that sort of information that you've done the patches and everything went smooth, that's good information to disseminate, across the state. So if people have any sort of reservations, they can, we're sort of assuaging any reservations they may have.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, especially if we're seeing, it's one of those, just to plea to everybody, since we are representing quite a few different organizations here. If you get a CVE and it's one you actually do respond to, reply to the list and say, hey, no issues here, or, you're not giving away any secrets. I mean, the fact is you patched something, so that's a good thing.
Or don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah, exactly. Please, on those, definitely say, but please don't come back and say, no, we didn't patch the 0 login vulnerability because, but I loved it. Chris Wallace is not in here, but that little addition he added so much more value to that post. I mean, it's like all the readings that we had, and it's like, yeah, and by the way, there's a couple other registry keys you might need to do in that to actually be secure. So all that information right now, I mean, this is kind of what NCLGISA is all about. And, especially like you said, as we're coming into these crunch time hours, I mean, you want to hold tight, but given some of these CVEs that have been coming out and all these vulnerabilities, I mean, the windows are so short, and we don't want that to be the downfall, going into everybody's gonna be working long on a, closing down one stops on a Saturday, and then you get your 1 day break to convert over, get ready for, presidential election. And that's, our prime target time for something dumb, to take place. So. Any other thoughts? Has anybody, I mean, I know we've had our typical, SOSA and SEAMS updates. that we've gone through, but I think it's gone pretty smooth. I mean, we're not completely off of Seems Classic. Wish State Board of Elections were here so we could just harass them just a little, but anybody have any issues with their one-stop rollouts or anything? And, I mean, I know everybody's live now, so.
If our early voting continues like it is, nobody's going to be voting on Super Tuesday.
That's right. That'll be awesome. Get everybody voting early.
Hey guys, this is Chris from Henderson. Just want to follow up on your comment earlier about Cloudflare. Have you had any concerns from a security perspective from them as far as the amount of malicious traffic that seems to be generated inside of Cloudflare?
What do you mean malicious?
Well, for example, we have our site hosted by Municode, and we went to turn on the proxy service for our main website, and I've got the response here from Municode. And this isn't the only place I've heard this from. But another consultant that we work with brought this up as well. But here was Municode's response. We've had most Cloudflare traffic blocked entirely for a very long time due to the massive quantities of malicious traffic generated there, as well as their complete disinterest in addressing abuse issues. And they were basically saying if you want to put it as a cache, they can work out an exception there. But I mean, have you guys heard of any other issues potentially with using Cloudflare as a proxy?
No, that's the first I've heard. I will say that we're Civic Plus. Ted's probably the ideal one to speak on this. And apparently there's a few exceptions that have to be made for a Civic Plus site to work 100%. And that might be what Municode's running into, is when you turn on the orange proxy, there's some things that are breaking. But I've never heard of, the only traffic that comes from Cloudflare is if you're coming through. I'm not quite sure.
It's very ironic, and it sort of defeats the purpose. The reason you want to use them as a proxy is to enhance your security posture. And it seems
and the only thing I can think, and it was kind of what we were seeing with Civic Plus, is like, well, if you already have Cloudflare, then we can't help you. Isn't that what we heard, Ted? Or it's kind of, they were pretty much in the boat of, we would rather you buy the distributed denial of service through us as opposed to going direct. And I'm like, well, that's not the only site we have. So
and I think that was kind of the response. Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was kind of the response we got back from Municode. They had their own service that they would provide, but to Randy's point, that's not the only site that we would want to proxy.
And I think that might be more of what it is. And it kind of goes, like the Mac PC conversation, it's like, well, if you've got your own, and I know the state's using, I can't remember what it's just not coming to me right now, but they're using the other major DDoS solution that's not Cloudflare, that's out there. Akamai. There's another as well. There's a couple. But yeah, so and then all the sites have to have their exceptions built on that, and Cloudflare's come out with a lot of stuff recently. So, but yeah, just the reverse proxying and web application firewalling is kind of the big thing. But no, I haven't heard that. I'd be interested, and we actually have a Municode site, so I might just put something in front and see what that looks like, and see if it just
and it wasn't strictly coming from Municode. It was from other vendors as well that we work with. So that's why we put the brakes on it for now. We're just using Cloudflare's for DNS currently, but definitely feel like we need to proceed, but I'm just want to have a little better feeling.
No, that's good. I'd be happy to hear any thoughts there and start looking ourselves on that. Cause you're absolutely right. All we're doing is just, breaking every, I mean, Google has their own DNS, Akamai worked with multi-state ISAC, and then they have their solution. So it's like we're truly funneling everything through a few different, major providers. So all this is going to be harder to discern. So very good points there. Any other thoughts or comments? I know, we've got a lot of different sessions that we're having, and any comments or thoughts from an election standpoint. I mean, really the bottom line is, I mean, it's not just specific to election security. Everything that you're doing now, just that happens to be an event that, is pretty much going to adjust some of your maintenance windows, and you probably have a freeze. You're not going to want to do anything on the weekend before elections aside. Don't we have time change that weekend too?
Of course.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I haven't even looked. I mean, isn't it like November 2nd?
Yeah, I think you're right.
That's nice.
The first.
The first. Okay. So yes, we have an image update that we have to do. Sure, Justin.
Probably a full moon that weekend too.
Yeah. It's just a real confluence of suck coming up on us.
Embrace the suck, Mark.
Yeah,
I think the state we can push the daylight savings, or some of us want to have daylight a little bit longer. You think we can get a executive order for that?
Oh, I'm sure we could.
This is a learning opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
As is 2020.
Yeah, just keep in mind that it's a learning opportunity with a lot of eyes on everything that you're doing. Anybody that can and will make a mistake will be watched.
What my learning opportunity was is that I never want to go through the 2020 again.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned.
If we don't have any other comments, I'm not going to just sit here and look at everybody's faces. We'll let everybody get to the rest of their day. And for those that are working from home and smell really good food in the background, you got your VR goggles on, you have no idea what it is. Well, Tom, Lieutenant Colonel Barron, we really appreciate you being here. Appreciate everything that you're doing. I know you guys are working through a lot of other stuff and still putting in these hours. It's truly appreciated, and we always enjoy working with you, except for the fact of what we're having to work through with you on. So thank you for everything y'all are doing.
Thanks.
Absolutely.
You guys, I mean, you guys are the boots on the ground, so you're doing all the work there. So, oh, and I just got a text in here said that we think that some of those regional EOCs will be operating.
Okay.
So
good to know. Local support too, then.
Yep.
Regional support. Yeah. Excellent. Any questions from anybody before we wrap up?
This is Captain Reinwald. I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to the CISA alerts page. So they just published the 2 alerts related to those CVEs, and then also some of the other recent activity. And they're not too long, but I think they're a pretty good read, and they've got some pretty good mitigation measures that they recommend in there if you've got the time to go ahead and take a look at those.
Captain Reinwald, would you share the link to that in the chat, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me do that real quick.
Thank you very much.
We'll get that captured, and then we'll let everybody. I know they're having the virtual social hour tonight. Be sure to cam up. Darren's going to do an awesome job. There's no telling what he's going to dress up as. So, Mark, I expect you to be there in your best avatar suit.
I will. I'll do my best. I'm sure you can throw on something as well.
Yes. What time? Does anybody have the time of it? That's my biggest thing with the virtual conference this time is what time things are.
5:45 to 7, I believe, is what.
5:45 to 7. Excellent.
Is that right?
Alrighty. I don't know. I'm just agreeing with you.
Okay, well, that's fine. And you know-
Yes, I just checked the webpage. Yes.
oh, look at that. Thanks, Rob.
Mark is right.
For once.
Whoa, whoa,
Oh my
whoa,
gosh.
whoa, whoa. Wait,
And
Careful,
this is
careful with your
recorded.
words there, Ted.
wait, this is recorded. This is recorded. We have proof.
April Fools.
Hey, dude.
No, it's going to be called 2020. Alrighty, y'all.
Too soon.
Thank you. Too soon. Yes, we're still in it. All right. Well, everybody have a great one. Really appreciate it. And see you tonight if you're there.
Thank you all.